Hello and welcome to the 15-minute show, part of the Arsenal Therapy podcast. As always, we'll be broadcasting twice a week, so please make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications for the show. You've done great work helping us double this channel in the last few months, so please continue to subscribe and watch the show. We really appreciate everyone who's joined us this summer. So a few stories to start the day. Big news for Arsenal. Saka and Odegaard have made the shortlist for the Ballon D'Or. Now, this has just seemed to further infuriate Man United fans. It seems we just can't get enough of their tears right now. With Saka and Odegaard making the list, we've seen, how is Rashford not on the list? How is Bruno Fernandes not on the list? Well, the reality is, if you perform for 8 to 10 games a season, you're not going to be on the Ballon d'Or shortlist unless it's at the World Cup. That is the reality of it. Both Saka and Odegaard were fantastic from pretty much start to finish last season, in the way that Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford just simply weren't. Both of them had a great spell, kind of post-World Cup through to around March. We saw it right up from, like, literally as the World Cup ended to the end of the Carabao Cup final, and then Man United very much fell off a cliff. Most rational Man United fans, and there are a few out there, will tell you that Marcus Rashford is incredibly overrated. He's someone that massively frustrates their fan base. And Bruno is a bit of a fan favourite there. He has dragged them out of a lot of situations. And he's been one of the few shining lights for them over the last few years. He does step up for them. He scores goals. He gets assists. He does a lot for that team. And whilst we see all the negatives, there are a lot of good sides to Bruno Fernandes. And I definitely believe in a different shirt, he may be a slightly different player. But at Man United, he is a player that we all love to hate. And in comparison to Martin Odegaard, we're seeing a player who influences every aspect of the game at Arsenal. He's our technical leader on the pitch. He leads the press. He's the player that wants the ball. He glues everything together. He links with Saka, Ben White. He's very much the kingpin of the Arsenal team. And he's one of the players that's really helped raise the bar at Arsenal. And he's rightfully our skipper right now. So it is great to see both of them on the shortlist for the Ballon d'Or. Let's be honest, none of us expect either of them to go ahead and win it, given that you've got Messi, who probably will win it after literally dragging Argentina to the World Cup. You've got Haaland with the number of goals he scored and won the treble. And in my personal opinion, a player that's very much been overlooked is Rodri. Rodri played the most minutes for City. And if you look at his numbers, he's very much in the lead across every stat in the Premier League for a player in his position. He also got the winner in the Champions League final. So for me, Rodri's a player that won't win it, but should very much be considered. And someone that I think he is the bar in that sixth position right now. And it's where we think Declan Rice will very quickly get to, and in my opinion, surpass Rodri. I think Declan Rice has that much ability. But right now, it's something that we should be really pleased with. And it's a year ago, after just missing out in top four, the reality was we could never have expected any Arsenal players to be on the shortlist for Ballon d'Or. We knew there was the potential of them getting close to that, but we were some distance away. And I think that's something that United fans need to accept. We had this when we had players like Aubameyang in the team. We grossly inflated how good they were because they were carrying a very, very poor team. And that's not a knock on Aubameyang. He was top quality. But when we compared him to other strikers and had this, it's an agenda against Arsenal and so on. I don't know about you guys, but whenever Arsenal kind of stepped it up last year, suddenly I really noticed what was required week in, week out in comparison to do it across 4 or 5 games. And we've seen that with City and Liverpool over the years. It was week after week, the intensity, the precision in the pass and the crispness, the work rate, everything that came into a team challenging for a title. That's what we had been lacking. And it wasn't an agenda against us. It wasn't people underrating our players. We just weren't good enough. And I think that's what United fans need to realise right now. And it's probably why they are so salty. And they also believe that their players are much, much better than they actually are. So the reality is neither Rashford or Bruno deserve to be on the shortlist for the Ballon d'Or. And what's even funnier is Chelsea fans are outraged that Enzo Fernandez isn't on it. Let's have some context around this. Enzo was part of a supporting cast that helped Messi lift the World Cup. He was nowhere near Argentina's best player. He was a young player that stood out, who was linked to Liverpool for a £40 million move, and Chelsea paid £120 million. That was the value that Liverpool had. This is what Chelsea paid. Very, very talented player, but a very young player with a lot of development still to do. And to give you even more context, Martin Odegaard has won more games at Stamford Bridge than Enzo Fernandez. Martin Odegaard has played 3 games, won 3 games. Enzo Fernandez has 2 wins during his time at Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. So how a player who has won so few games and finished in a team that finished 12th and did not improve after his arrival could even be considered on the shortlist is absolutely beyond me. But I love their optimism and this whole outcry at everything. Everyone's against Chelsea, when actually it's a case of you just bought 31 players and you don't need most of them. So just be happy for right now that you've got a player that you can even believe could possibly make that shortlist. But on to other news. The VAR footage has been released over the weekend. Now, for me, it was quite insightful. I know some people haven't really liked it, but the Havertz penalty in particular, and this is another one that I find funny with Man United fans. The outrage over VAR was wrong about the offside. VAR was wrong about the Højlund penalty appeal, which was literally nothing. It couldn't have been less of a penalty appeal. Højlund barely appealed himself, if he did at all. No Man United players seemed outraged on the pitch. It was only after the game when Ten Hag spoke out about it. The commentary team barely mentioned it. It's good defending from Gabriel. He lets Saliba clear it up, and on we go again. But the funny thing is, there is outrage that the offside wasn't offside. VAR was wrong. VAR was wrong again. But VAR was 100% right to overturn Havertz's penalty decision. So we have seen the footage of that. And it is, in my opinion, quite interesting. Because I've talked on the pod, I've talked on this show. My gut reaction when that penalty was given was it was going to be overturned. I thought it was soft. And my measure is always, if that was the other way around. And now I've got 2 positions in this. If that was the other way around, I've seen those given time and time again against Arsenal. We've seen some of our players sent off for a lot less. I think back to David Luiz, Wolves, and against City whenever he pulled back either Mahrez or Sterling. And we have had repeated penalty incidents over the years for very, very soft challenges. On this one, I think there is contact on Havertz, both from Wan-Bissaka and from Casemiro. Havertz possibly is on the way down whenever the second lot of contact's made, but there is contact and he is traveling through 2 bodies. And I think it's one of those, it's a soft one, but in my opinion, after the penalty was given, it should have stood. Now, what's interesting, I think, is the way the ref in the studio is talking to Anthony Taylor. It's very much before Taylor goes over, there is that, what am I going to see here? And there is minimal contact. It's very soft. And it's in his ear. I recommend an on-field review. And it's very much around this. It's pushing him to overturn it. And it's one of those that begs the question, was the ref overruled and basically told to overrule it? Because that is partly how it comes across. And whilst I think the decision was fine, big part of that, I will be completely honest, if we did not win that game, I don't know how happy I would have been about this. Right now, don't particularly care because we won the game 3-1. But I think it is one of those that we do have to question, what is the role of the ref in the studio? Is it to guide the ref, or is it to overrule them and push them to get the right decision? I have no problem if a ref in a studio who has 10, 15, 20 different angles of an incident is able to overrule a ref and say, look, you need to go and have this review because we think you've made the wrong decision. Perfectly fine with that. And I think that's great. That was my original understanding of VAR when it came in. that we were going to have a video referee that could overrule the ref, or at least really push them to review their decision. However, that doesn't seem the case. We have contradicting reports every week. Every time a referee goes on Ref Watch, we're told that is not the role of VAR. The role of VAR is not to get the right decision and so on, and all this bollocks that we hear every week. Now, for me, if we can get to the point where VAR is there to get the right decision, great. And I ultimately think it was probably the right decision with Havertz. And I think if it was the other way around, we would be screaming that it wasn't a penalty. So I'm not too bothered about that. But as I say, I'm not too bothered because we won the game 3-1. But as I say, Man United fans, their tears are incredibly salty right now. And it is bizarre, the outrage over a offside decision that continues 4 or 5 days after we've beaten them, and they still refuse to accept the result. And with each angle that we're showing, it looks more and more offside. So it's a very, very strange one, and one that it really does beg the question: how much do they know or understand football? But the good thing is, we are seeing those reports. We've seen the City goal against Burnley, the offside, and now Akanji's very clearly standing in it, and they spend time talking about why Akanji's breaking the rule, why Akanji is obstructing the view of the keeper, and why it shouldn't be given. And then check complete, goal. So this is where we really need that transparency from referees. The game is so commercialized, so overanalyzed right now, and referees are the only ones that get a free pass. Players are put to the dogs, managers lose their jobs over this stuff, and fans are just sent into complete meltdowns over refereeing decisions. So the fact that we are seeing this now is, I think, a massive step forward. And I think ultimately, every time we get a bit of this footage, it's going to give greater transparency, which is going to lead to greater scrutiny and greater results in the long term. So for me, some people may not like what they heard at the weekend from VAR, but for me, that's a massive step forward that we're actually getting this information and this insight into what referees and the people in the studio are discussing. And finally, just to wrap up today, I wanted to pay some particular attention to Charlie Patino. Charlie has been at Swansea, obviously, as everyone knows, 3 assists in 4 games, and he's really, really won the hearts of the Swansea fans. Watched him at the weekend. One of those performances on the ball looked absolutely superb. His ability to receive, turn, and really occupy that left-hand side space was excellent. There's still work to do off the ball, but that's the reason he's on loan at Swansea and not playing for Arsenal. And then a part of the reason why he didn't get a move to a Premier League club in the summer. So Charlie's one of those where I think the move to Blackpool started really well last year. Then Mick McCarthy came in, and I did go and watch Charlie a couple of times. And when Mick McCarthy was at Blackpool, it was very much long ball, bypass the midfield, back. Charlie spent most of the game working off the ball, which in some ways really developed his off the ball skill set, but it did nothing for his abilities on the ball. And people will say, but we know what he can do on the ball. Like, we know what Lionel Messi could do on the ball at 18. The reality is he kept getting better and better and better. And Charlie Patino is a player that we want to grow as an on-the-ball influencer across the pitch. We want him to be a controller, and we want him to be someone that really breaks into the Arsenal team and shines. So it was really positive to see him kind of play that much more kind of controlling role at Swansea. A lot of touches on the ball, and a very high pass completion rate as well. So he's a player that I think will only grow as the season goes on. Swansea are a ball playing team. They have been for a long, long time. And I think this is a really good move for Charlie. So let's see how this one ends up. But I think it's one to pay particular attention on. And he is a player. He's got 2 years left on his deal at this time. And if Arsenal are intent on keeping him, the hope is that we can negotiate a longer term deal, because he's a player that I think could develop into that left 8 for Arsenal and be a real controller on the left-hand side of the pitch. Very similar to the way Granit Xhaka was, but Charlie Patino is a much more agile, better mover, than Xhaka was. And he's someone that I think can really, really develop into a top talent. So definitely keep an eye on him and let's see how he develops. But thank you to everyone that's joined up until this point. Please hit that subscribe button. Please hit the like button on the video. And please help us to continue what we're doing with this show. Thank you for joining and have a great day.